Hello and welcome to sim.bc, where right now is 1:38, so it's in the middle of the night. Now, usually these kinds of videos, the more podcasty or discussion type videos, usually are scripted, or at least semi-scripted. But today I just had a stroke of inspiration and I didn't know quite where to fit it in because I'm having a project at the time working through a founder's problem. So it's not until a couple of days that I have a free spot, and even then I have a next upcoming project. So I thought, why not try to slot it into one of these videos and just see what happens. Now this might not end up being a video because yet again I'm very unsure about the entire, the overlay, the structure and so on and so forth, but we'll see what we're ending up. Anyway, the entire inspiration for this video, as you probably will be able to have deciphered from the title, is that I was recently asked why I was sharing my opinions online. And this is all in conjunction that I was talking to some of my friends, me mates, that entire meme, yeah. I was talking to some of my friends and telling them about that the YouTube channel actually exists. And then I was asked the question of, yet again, the same question of why are you sharing your opinions online? And the entire basis for this argument was that you're obviously not 100% correct when you talk. And fair point, fair to you. I didn't actually have any form of answer at that point, so that is probably why I have been thinking about it for a while. So just to set the stage, to put you in the context, I've recently been watching a lot of Jordan Peterson on YouTube, a fellow YouTuber who is quite big on controversies, not big on controversies, but quite a lot of controversies have been surrounding him, the last 1 or 2 months, in the last 15 months when he's been writing his book. And I have also been watching quite a lot of Stephen Fry, which is another influential person. They seem to be two very intellectual people, but in very opposite kind of directions. But they both seem to be, believing in kind of different ways. For instance, Jordan Peterson is a lot for religion, while Stephen Fry, I shouldn't put words in his mouth, or I shouldn't take the words for him. Let's say he's free to discover, or rather to present his own point, and you should go watch his videos about interviews with him to actually get your own idea. But as far as I have been able to decipher, the idea is that he's against and very much opposed, at least the Catholic Church, but religion as a whole, I'm not that sure. But it seems at least to be that there are two very different people, yet operating in kind of a similar manner, which I thought was kind of interesting to see. So I've been very much listening to those two individuals, and I have also, been trying to search the web for various different ideas and very different perspectives, especially today since I was writing kind of a pitch for the project that I'm going through, the founder's problem, because we're going to tackle the pitch quite soon. So I was like, I might as well write a pitch for the channel, and the same idea came up, that why am I doing this? Why am I actually sharing my opinions online? Going full circle back to what my friends mentioned. And I've been, yet again, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I've been watching these very influential speakers, and I've been thinking about it and try to approach it from very different sorts of, directions in order to get a clear perspective and a clear answer for why I'm doing it. Because I think that my response in the moment, let's say, was something along the lines with, I can. And to a certain extent, the conclusion that I made prior to recording this is actually kind of similar. It's the same idea of, I can, so I'll do. But it's not that short-minded, so just bear with me and we'll see if we can decipher this together. So the idea that I came up with is that in order for me to actually go out and share something on the internet, first of all, I need to consider that I don't want to say anything online that can be used against me. And of course, that is never going to be, I'm never going to be able to be objective in that sense and being able to meet that condition, because everything that you say online can and will be used against you. It's a bit like the law when you're a criminal, right? The rights that the police, say to you in all of these classical movies. But yet again, the idea is that there are many things that you say online that will probably be used against you at some point if you keep at it for, a long enough time, which is arguably good. It's arguably bad because, people are probably going to feel a bit restricted when it comes to the freedom of speech, which is kind of the idea that I was tackling when someone told me, why are you expressing yourself online? And I was like, isn't that my right? Yet again, the idea that, because I can, right? And yet again, it is the same problem that people will probably use it against you, no matter how careful you are when you actually talk and when you think it through before you do it. And especially me, and I'm not going to single out myself here, but my videos are, heavily focused on raw material. I'm working from like a key phrase or a key, a key word, a key subject, and working my way out from there when I'm discussing my videos. I'm sure that plenty of times I've been stepping over some sort of line without even realizing it, even though I'm actively trying not to, which is unfortunate. But yet again, we're coming back to the idea that they were asking me this. And I thought first and foremost, as I said, that, I shouldn't be stating anything that I can't stand for and something online that can be used against me because I can't stand for it and motivate it later. So that is why I've been waiting a bit for actually making the video. But the idea that I came up with, and I promise you we will get into it no matter how much I rumble, I'm trying to be as politically correct as possible, right? Providing the context, providing my thought process up until this point. But we're coming back to that, I believe that throughout my life, I've been, I've acquired knowledge, right? We've all acquired knowledge in some form of way. We've all done it differently. We all have different interpretations of the same, the same outcomes. So if something happens in the world, if there's an earthquake, I will view that news piece and think in a certain way, while my friend who is going to university, the same university as I am, they've been growing up in the same area, been studying the same thing, is probably going to have potentially can have a very different take on the same problem of the same earthquake, and we can have very different opinions about it. So over the course of our lives, as we grow up, we come in contact to these kind of situations, various sorts of situations that can be either general things that affect everybody, but yet everybody has different opinions on the matter, or very individual things, such as your parents might break up, or you might lose someone that's close to you, either if that is because they're passing away, or because you're very bad friends with someone that you thought was really close to you. Many different things can shape an individual, but I assume that everybody knows that already. It's not something that I had to go into, I don't believe. But the idea is anyway that we go through life, we acquire lots and lots of data, and our heads, our consciousness, I don't know what to call it, our brains, something in us trying to decipher this chaos of reality that is around us and try to make sense of it all, finding patterns. People are happy that are in habits. At least I've read so, and I truly believe so because I am feeling the same kind of thing. As you probably know if you've been following the channel, I'm a creature of habits, even though I'm recording it all different sorts of times in the day. Matters less. Anyway, the idea is that your head and your brain is trying to decipher this chaotic environment that is around you. And it's doing the best it can in order to, as I said, decipher all of this data and actually make it into information in one form or another. Which is great, which is all good. But this also leads us to believe our own truths that we make for ourselves. Because in order to approach any form of chaotic, environment, you need to understand that your brain has probably made assumptions based on what you've encountered previously in your life, what kind of nation you've been growing up in, what kind of culture, what kind of religion. There's a plethora, what can I say? There's an indistinguishable and unidentified amount of variables that counts in towards actually deciding who you are as a person, because that's what this all comes down to, this part of the discussion at least. That through the course of your life, you've been interacting with so vastly many different things that it's impossible to pinpoint who you are and what you believe. But your brain somehow miraculously have made up a personality of all of these interactions and been pushing this on you. So that is probably what's going to be your personality. And don't take my word for it, I'm not a psychologist. I do not state that I am, and I don't believe that I am. So take all of this with a pinch of salt. But imagine that your brain is making sense of all of this, and it makes, well, it sounds logical to me that your brain will do this, making sense of the chaotic environment around you and creating truths in order to actually anchor, well, yourself to a point of reality that you can later reference when you're talking about something specific in the future. So something that's been happening to you in the past, let's say it's someone passing away, you felt that, you felt a certain way when that happened, you dealt with it in a certain way, that was probably a key moment in your life, and your brain probably made a sort of an anchor point to that feeling and to how you felt with the people around you, how the people around you felt, and how you interpreted their feelings, and make an anchor point of that situation and of that point in time when discussing this in the future, in order to yet again relate back to something, in order to decipher what will happen in a future event and what will happen in the future. So we make these kinds of truths for ourselves that we can actually use, and then the brain generalizes so that we can actually, well, think, and so that we can actually talk and interact with other people, because communication is based on a common understanding of what we're actually talking about. I don't think that it takes an expert in order to at least get to that form of conclusion, even if that's neither if that's right or wrong. I think that conclusion can be made without any form of professional degree in any sort of discipline or any academic but just believe that you have this brain, and you have all of these people, you have billions of people in the world who have very different opinions, they have very different personalities, all of them are acting in very different ways because of different events that has been taking place in their lives. And well, they have access to different truths, and they have access to different generalizations, and this later on yet again shapes who they are as a person. So why then can't I, or shouldn't I, express my opinions online? We're trying to get back to that. I'm just drifting off because I feel like it's going to be important for the conversation in order to set the context. Well, imagine this. I've encountered all of these things in my life. My brain has acquired all of the data. It's deciphered it as good as it can, this chaotic environment, made it into information. Yeah? Based on this, let's say that there is a universal truth. Just for argument's sake, in order to actually work towards a common goal here for something. All of humanity is working towards this truth. The correctness of everything, what is right in every situation, and so on and so forth. This is completely absurd if you ask me, but just in order to make it logical and being able to actually decipher this, we're going to imagine that there is one reality, or one truth, sorry. That is the one truth. Now, imagine that I've been acquiring enough knowledge so that I know a fifth of that truth. And that is just a number. You can throw that away. You can make it higher. You can make it lower. That's just, for argument's sake, we're just going to quantify the amount of truth that I know of this one unified truth. So I know a fraction of that, right? A fifth of that truth. So knowing that, I'm still going to talk about the other 4 parts of, let's make up the full 5, right? Fractions. But only a fifth of it's going to be correct. So about 20% is going to be what is considered to be the universal truth. And I go out on the internet and I spread this message, right? Because that's what I do on YouTube. I go out, I talk, I express my emotions, my feelings, my experience. I apply my train of thought, I apply my knowledge, my understanding, other people's understandings, reference them, try to actually access their points of view when discussing a topic, but mostly my own. I shouldn't lie, right? I shouldn't paint it in any other picture than it actually is. But I having access to 20% of the universal truth, and I'm still spreading this online. Well, now comes to the interesting part, because up until now, it's just been built up, right? This is what they're asking. Why are you spreading your fifth of the universal truth on the internet when you know yourself? Because I can't be too arrogant to say that, well, everything that I believe is true, it's the universal truth. That would be outrageous now, wouldn't it? That would be crazy. That would be probably the most arrogant, ignorant, and narcissistic thing ever. And believe me, I think myself that I'm arrogant, ignorant, and a bit narcissistic, or even a bit, I'm probably a lot of narcissistic, but the idea still comes around that even I, given these personality traits, believe that what I know and the conclusions I've come up with are far, far from correct, all of them. But some of them probably are. So I go out, I make a YouTube video, I talk about stuff, I talk about a key subject because I want to spread my part of knowledge to, well, other people in the world. I edit it, I upload it, and that's fine. I'm done, right? I've been uploading my word, my communication, my take on a topic to the internet. Now let's say that someone else comes around and we're just going to yet again make a statement that they know a fifth of the truth because they have been gone through their entire life up until this point. That doesn't mean that they're 100 years old, right? It doesn't need to be their entire life. They don't need to be 5 years old either, but up until this point in time, let's say for argument's sake that they're equally as old as me, in their 20s to 30s, right? In their 20s to mid-20s, I would say. So they have a kind of a similar frame of reference, but perhaps they are from the other side of the earth, or, well, following my own example, they don't have to. They can actually, come up in the same world as I am and in the same town and being raised in probably very closely to the same way and still have very different, interpretations of what is right. But let's say that there is someone from the other side of the earth, just to make it crystal clear, right? And I'm not saying that everybody is opposite on the side of the world, it's just that, well, it perhaps makes it a bit clearer if I say that they're from the other side of the world due to stereotypes. Yet again, the generalization that your brain makes in order to make sense of the chaotic environment around you. That other people from other places are different, even though they're probably not. Yet again, hedging here because it's might end up online. So, this person from the other side of the world, let's say Australia, probably as close as I can get to 180 degrees from, well, Sweden or the Nordic countries. Someone who's growing up in Australia might say that, well, I've gone through my life, I've met people, I've been hurting people, I've been hurt, I've been loved, I've crushed someone's heart, I've been crushed myself, I've been to the brink of destruction, I've come back. And all of this has led to that I have a certain understanding and a certain perception of what reality is. I have a certain perception of what is right, of what is wrong. I build my own code of ethics, my own view on morality. I interpret people in different ways. This is basically what we went through before. The same thing has happened to me, has happened to someone else. And this person then is going out, searching online, probably studying business, just for, yet again, for argument's sake. A lot of things here is going to be for argument's sake, because what is the probability that a small YouTube channel is going to access someone in Australia that is the perfect match for this argument? So if I'm saying for argument's sake, it's not because it's implausible, or not plausible at all rather, but it's because it is plausible, but perhaps not at this point in time that exactly this example would happen. But I hope that you catch my drift anyway and don't, say that, well, this doesn't make sense, because, well, it probably makes as much sense as if I would have taken another example. It's just that I think this example is better. Yet again, might end up online, so trying to state it as correctly as I can, hedging. So this person from Australia, then if we're getting back, is watching my video. And this person is having, yet again, we're quantifying it, a fifth of the universal truth to their disposal, at their disposal, rather. And when confronting my views on a topic with their own, if we imagine that all of the universal truth that they have acquired is equally split between all knowledge that they have, so that this topic is actually going to be a fair representation of the 20% of universal truth and 80% of wrong, being in the wrong, we can say that based on this topic that I'm discussing, I know 20%, they know 20%. the important thing here, and why I am actually, we're getting to the point here, we're getting closer to actually discussing it, why I'm exercising my opinion on the internet, why I'm actually stating my opinion online, is because this other person, the 20% that they come up with, that is the universal truth, might not be the same 20% that I've come up with. And this is the key point here that we're probably going to try and elaborate on, or that we've come to. Because imagine that this person has 20% of the universal truth, and it's not at all the same as I have. Now, that might mean that when this person is viewing my content, viewing my video, they're going to say, well, that's trash, and that's bad, and that's wrong, because, well, probably 80% of it is going to be wrong, because, well, 80% of what I say is probably not in alignment with the universal truth. However, there are going to be moments of pure gold in the eyes of this Australian person. Let's just say a man, so that I can use a pronoun if I accidentally use it by mistake later on. So this guy then, from Australia, is saying that, well, that actually made sense. Even though we talk lots of trash, there were some moments there where I actually could resonate with him and see his point of view, and that wasn't actually wrong. It was very uplifting to see this point of view being brought forward. So even though I wasn't 100% right, I still been able to make an impression on this person. Let's say that he acquired all of the 20% of the universal truth that I had through my video, a one-time thing. Well, or if he binged watched all of my video and got an understanding of who I was, and based on that got the 20% that I had. How he got it matters less. Or well, it actually doesn't, because that's the entire point of the idea here, that I'm promoting my own opinions through YouTube and someone is accessing them. So let's say that he's watching all the videos, he gets an understanding of what my 20% of the universal truth is, and he is left with 40% of the universal truth. Because what I've said might have been in contradiction to his own ideas of where he was in the wrong. You following me here? So I have 20%, and I know I'm saying this a lot. He has 20%. After watching this, some of the 80% where he was in the wrong was corrected by my 20% where I was in the right. Either if this is because, well, they were contradicting it in a good way, or I had basis for it, or his logical point of view or his logical reasoning just took over and said that, well, this actually makes sense, or if he actually appealed to that part of, well, the content, I don't know. But let's say that, or rather, not just let's say, but my idea of what has been right or what is right has resonated with him on some level. So he's taken that to heart, and now he's going to use that as a part of data, and his brain is going to utilize this part of this information that is newly accessed and rework its understanding of what is actually the universal truth and how much of it do I acquire at this point in time, even though we probably are ambiguous to that at the moment unless we will fulfill it. And even then it's going to be hard to see if we have the universal truth, because it's going to be based on everybody else in the world's opinion about if we're right and wrong, and not our own understanding of if we're right and wrong, because we probably think that we're right all the time, even though we know we're not. But this person then has gotten 40% universal truth now, as in opposition to before he watched the video. So the argument I'm trying to make here is that I don't need to be 100% right in order to actually influence someone to getting closer to the truth, the universal truth, or spreading what is correct or what is said to be correct, or anything along those lines. I just need to spread my opinion, and then it's based on people's own understanding of actually accessing the information that I've shared in order to take it to heart or to throw it away. And yet again, English isn't my native language, if I'm a bit clunky with the words here, clunky with my formulations. So I just need a bit of water. So this guy walks away with 40% of the universal truth. And that is if it is mutually exclusive, let's say. One can argue as well that perhaps say that 20% of mine and 20% of his, and then a good 5% of that is actually overlaying that 5% of what he thinks is the universal truth, I also agree with. That means that, well, those 5% he already have, I'm not going to give him 5% more because he already have those 5%. So that is going to take away 5% from my 20 that I can actually distribute, that he can take to heart, and he will walk away with 35% of the universal truth. But he still gained something. Now, worst case scenario, he has 19.9% of like overlapping with mine, even though I would say that it's highly unlikely at this stage when it's so low percentages that we're talking about. And it's only going to access, well, 0.0001%. But that's still a step in the right direction. Now, this person, one can argue rather that one of the strong cases, I should say, of opposition to this idea is that, well, he could take the 20% of the universal truth to heart. He could also take to heart the 80% of the things where you're in the wrong, which I came up with when I thought about this. And yeah, that would be a solid, not a solid, but that would be one argument for why I shouldn't state my opinion like online at all if I'm not 100% right. Because people can take to heart the things where I'm in the wrong, where I think that I'm correct. So I'm trying to sell it because I believe that I'm correct, even though I don't know that I'm not. And I'm selling this to other people, just spreading being in the wrong. Can you see what I'm saying here? So the 80% where I'm not in the right without knowing it, of course, I'm not going to spread lies. I believe I'm correct, but it's actually not in alignment with the universal truth. I'm going to spread this as best as I can because I think it's correct. Because I can't identify myself what is actually these 20% that is right. So when I'm doing this, this person might actually take to heart some of the things that aren't right that I've been trying to spread, which is bad. And yes, that is a valid concern. That is one of the reasons why you can argue against this point and say that, well, you should rather be quiet and sit at home and not share these, well, opinions that are wrong, because you can actually influence people in a very bad way, and they can actually take this to heart instead of the things that are good. Now, this might actually not, there's no actual correlation between being in alignment with the universal truth and saying something that's wrong and that actually being something bad. That can still be something good. It just means that, well, it potentially might not be the best or the one thing that you should do in this discussion, in this argumentation. But then I would say, isn't it better then that this person, after watching, leaves a comment on the video showing to others that what he has taken to heart, or what his understanding of what was right and wrong was here? Because that will be my opportunity to actually access his 20% of what he thought, of what he has of the universal truth, and access what I see in his reasoning. And he can influence me, I can influence him, because he has left the comments, so I can actually get some sort of understanding. Now, I understand as well that comments are limited. I mean, words are only as good as they're presented. And unfortunately, many people in the world, well, now he's from Australia in this example, but many people in the world aren't that good at actually expressing themselves in English online, or they might express themselves in Spanish, and I'm just sitting there like a sitting duck, like what I don't understand, which is also a limitation of this approach in this process. But at least I provided this person with the opportunity to gain my 20% of the conversation. And here's where this idea kind of falls apart. The argument against saying that, well, if you spread something that's wrong, it's going to be wrong and that's bad. Yes, but the more people that are involved, I would argue, and this is probably a matter of perspective, because I know that some people are going to say the more people who are there, the more the peer pressure going to be, and they're going to take the things that are bad and they're going to just run with that and say that that's the thing, and then they're going to push down all other people's opinions in the comment field, and you as a creator are going to run the risk of actually confirming your own statements all the time, even though they are confirming the statements where you're in the wrong. So I believe that I'm right when I'm actually confirming the things that are wrong. And that's a matter of perspective, because I truly believe that the people who are listening are taking to heart the things that are right, because that's what feels right, that's what resonates with them. and then how they choose to interpret what they have taken to heart and how that interacts with the rest of their life, that's a different matter, because they might take the good things to heart, and when they've gotten these good things, they still evaluate it from a perspective of someone who, lived their life. And I can't even give an example because everybody is so vastly different. Doing anything else would be a harsh generalization, to say the least. And I know that many people hate this kind of thinking and talking, but well, you do what you do. You're online, right? So without trying to generalize, I would say that the people, I hope that people take the good things to heart and reflect that in the best possible way that they can. Now, that might not always come out positive, and I understand that, but I am of the belief that it does, or as positive as they can make it. And this is also where the many people come in, because as I said before, the idea of peer pressure actually pushing down other people's opinions, of course that's bad, but you can also turn it around and say that, well, if more people are actually involved, then this guy from Australia, when he comments on my video and he says that this is my understanding of the topic, and I say, oh, that was my understanding too, a third or a fourth person can come in and say, oh, that's not how I got it. That's not how I understood it. Because they access 20% of the truth as well. And that might be vastly different from my 20%. And the 20% that I have that is the truth might in their lives be very different opinions that are then they are in the wrong with those opinions, but they might differ a lot. So then we create a discussion there, because they need to be convinced, perhaps they need to be convinced that the 20% where I'm in the right, they perhaps got it to heart, right? But they're still not following it, because the idea that just quietly take it isn't an option. So they're saying that, well, yes, in a way you're right, and I can see that, but this is still what I've grown up with. This is still my belief. This is still what I based all of these values in my life on. How can I possibly just take that away in an instant? I can't. I need to discuss this. And that's hopefully when the comment section is going to be you can't put a value on how valuable it's going to be. And I think it's called invaluable in English, right? So that's when the discussion in the comment section is actually going to prosper and make us understand, me as a content creator and the guy from Australia that has left the comment. We're going to together understand what has happened. We're going to talk about it, or rather discuss about it in the comment section. And then the people of coming out with different perspectives, they're going to say, well, speak their mind or comment their minds, let's say. The saying doesn't work. But they're going to comment what they thought was right, and then we're going to get into a discussion. And I would say this, key here is that everybody is open in the discussion, so that, we don't push someone else's perspective out because of, you're wrong and that's just how it is. But that we're actually keeping an open mind so that we can together access this universal truth as good as we can, because we all have different parts of it. So the best we can do is actually try to access it together through accessing, different people's parts of the truth. And people can have more of it or they can have less of it. Yet again, if 50 is just 20% is just an idea, a number. You can tweak that however much you want to and then evolve or take away as many people as you think see fit. But I would yet again, I would argue that since everybody is different, you need to, in theory, then have all, what are we, 7-8 billion now? People in the world together in one place, talking without being able to push out anybody's idea. And that's where we're going to come to the universal truth of what is actually right. Now, I understand that that's not reasonable. I understand that that's not going to happen, even though we have the internet and it's spreading, and that the potential for getting a very long way along the way is there. The potential is there. But unfortunately, many people, are stuck in this idea of generalizing and so on and so forth, which is a risk. So, getting back to it, sorry, drifting for a very long time there in my own ideas and my own points of view about this chaotic world that we're living in. But, it's chaotic because it's fun, because how fun would a stable world is? You can only achieve moderate fun in a stable world, right? You need to have some chaos thrown in there to actually mix it up and make it fun. Now, some really smart person said that that I've been watching quite recently, so I'm not going to take the credit for that idea of stability and happiness and chaos, but it's out there. You will probably be able to find it if you Google it. Anyway, so the idea here that I'm trying to push, and I know that I've said that a lot of times now, but trying to rephrase it now, trying to rethink. The main point of this discussion or of this podcasty thing is that I'm sharing my ideas and my beliefs and my opinions online, not because I think that I am 100% correct in doing so. I don't. That's arrogant, as I said before. I don't believe that I'm, 100% correct, but I believe that some of it that I say that is correct. Some of the things I believe is correct, if that makes sense after this, approaching 36 minutes of discussion. That some of the things that I believe is correct is actually correct. And if I state that, then that will be, other people will be able to access that information and that opinion and will be able to decipher from all the things that I've said is correct and actually understand based on their point of view, based on their life, based on their understanding, what I am actually correct in of all of the things I say I am correct at. And that is yet again a very abstract topic if you just state it like that, but hopefully this little introduction and setting the stage and context creation have helped you with that. So that is why I am talking on the internet and why I'm sharing my points of view and my ideas. Not because I think I'm right, but because I am right to a certain extent. And I hope that other people in, the rest of the world can access this and play off of it in order to gain a better understanding of, the world around us, what is actually considered to be right, universal truth, all of those things. And don't reference this anywhere in any, I should be a bit more specific. Don't reference this in any academic paper because I haven't read up on this. This is just a response that I had in my head the last, the last 2 or 3 hours, based on a question that I got 2 or 3 days ago. So this is not I don't have any academic sources for this. I can probably find some because I've yet again listened to Jordan Peterson and Stephen Fry before going into this discussion, and once I was thinking about and reflecting on my answers, many of the things that I'm talking about now probably are influenced by their part of the truth. Yeah, you see? What they think are right. And yeah, just to tie it together actually, since I remembered it, yet again, going off script here and going without script here today, so hard to keep track of the structure of what I've been doing. I need to remember everything. But as I think that I mentioned in the beginning, Stephen Fry and Jordan Peterson, I believe that those two individuals are people who have a high quantified amount, if you can quantify it, that is, of what is considered to be the universal truth. But where they are in the wrong, whilst they think they're right, so the parts of what they say that are not in the universal truth are vastly different. So even though they seem to be exactly the same, not exactly the same, but very close to each other, the things where they disagree, as an interpreter, me as a viewer, yet again, why it's so important for me to comment and seeing on their videos to actually get an understanding of how they think. I believe, and my perception of it is that they're very different in where they're different. And yeah, that again sounds so stupid to me, I'm always like, logical, it needs to make sense. And now I'm just talking here about very abstract concept that I'm not used to. But I like it. So the idea is that those two people are two people that I believe have a very high quantified amount of the truth within them in comparison to other people. Now, if that is that they have an entire percent of the universal truth within themselves, or if they have a 0.1%, or if they have 50%, that I can't answer because, yet again, I believe that the theoretical equilibrium here of what is the universal truth is the understanding of all people on earth, as I've said previously. So now it's just rambling on here, but that's my opinion at least. So yet again, rounding off, I'm stating my opinions online. This is my answer because, well, in order to make other people play off my ideas and actually gain a better understanding of the world, probably. Hopefully, that's the hope. Oh yeah, and I want to educate people and as best as I can to the best of my ability, and want to spread a different train of thought and a different way of thinking as well online, challenging the established and be very critical and apply source critique and so on and so forth. But that's the good old things that I think everybody should strive for. You know, the corporate culture here at sim.bc. Well, before I ramble on and just reiterate the same points over and over again for the next coming hour, that was everything for me, mates. Have a nice one. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you understood kind of what I was getting at, even though it was kind of abstract concept. I don't quite know yet where I will upload this. We'll see where it fits in, which category. Have a nice one. Leave a comment and see ya.